Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who follow my channel, you know I haven't posted in a while, and you know I've been in a psych nurse practitioner program and I just finished. For those of you who are new, I am Christian Nicole. I'm a doctor prepared family nurse practitioner, and I just finished the post-grad, the post-grad PMHNP program. And I wanted to talk to you guys all about it. I really wanted to make some content throughout the program, but life happened and I just couldn't do it. So I'm gonna try to catch you guys up on my experience in the PMHNP program and just give you guys as much insight as I possibly can. So let's take it back to last year. I did close my physical location for my office. For those of you who know that I have my own practice, but there's no physical location anymore. So I closed it in April and started the program in May at Chamberlain University. So they did accept my credits, my courses from my FNP program, which is the 3 Ps, advanced farm, advanced physical assessments, and advanced patho. Those carried over, and I think there was like 2 other courses that carried over. And I was right there at the deadline for one of the courses. So I ended up starting right on time. Otherwise, I would have had to take that course over. So when I started straight into the core classes for psych, which was psychopharmacology. I think that in any of the programs, I don't care if it's Chamberlain, if it's Walden, if it's Liberty, I feel like if you can get through the psychopharmacology, you're likely going to graduate. The hardest part about psych is the medications, which is also the most important. So there's a very strong focus on the medication, and I think that for people who don't know, and luckily I had a former professor who was on my social media. She was starting a psych program, and she kind of gave me some insight. She's like, it's all about the medicine, and it kind of is. So when you get into these programs, you'll find out that psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners primarily focus on medication management. We do not have an intense focus on the actual therapy, which I feel like is a little unfortunate. The upside to that is there are other disciplines that provide therapy, and rightfully so, we should refer, because we do not learn in-depth therapy. I feel like we learn the basics on therapy and the most popular forms of therapy, but we don't really learn how to provide solely therapy. I mean, you do, but it's not as in depth as a licensed mental health counselor or a clinical social worker, or somebody who literally their degree is in psychology. We don't get the in-depth education that they do, but we do get in-depth education on the psychopharmacology. So a lot of the jobs that you will have as a PMHNP, you'll learn in the program that it will be medication management. So most of these programs, including the one I attended, which was Chamberlain, for the most part, your clinical rotations will be in medication management, and a smaller portion will be in the therapy. 2 things that you need to know that I learned later on is I had to pay for every single preceptor I had. For FNP, I didn't pay anybody. So that was kind of something I had to get used to, and it wasn't hard for me to mentally, get used to, like, okay, this is different, and it is highly likely I'm gonna have to pay. So that's what I did. I know that there are some students who don't have to pay a preceptor, and that's probably because they already knew that person, or they just happen to get a hold of somebody that's really nice. But for the majority of for us, you are not gonna finish that program without having to pay someone. For me, I paid everybody, and I feel like it was a little easier. My first preceptor I found on a Facebook group when I made a post about looking for a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner to precept me. It was virtual and it was awesome. I think I mentioned that in a previous video, but I'm in Florida. She is in New Jersey, and you would kind of think because it's telepsych, you may not get a great experience, but I did. I was able to actually talk to clients. I was able to think through the cases. She asked questions of us throughout the clinical rotation. She gave us clinical parole, so it was awesome for me. And I didn't feel like the fee that she charged was exuberant. Now, when you go through other platforms such as these Preceptor Finder, whatever, I feel like those programs, those options, the cost is exuberant. There's no reason you should be paying $2,000 or more per course for a preceptor. The best thing to do is to not go through those platforms like Service that finds a preceptor for you, and to really just network through social media or through the people that you know. These programs also require for you to precept outside of our specialty, which means that we have to precept with a licensed mental health counselor, a psychologist, someone who provides psychotherapy that is not an MD, DO, PA, or PMHNP. It has to be an actual psychotherapist. Like, that is their degree is in therapy, providing therapy. That is hard because, number one, they're more likely going to focus on the students and their discipline. Also, it's just odd to have a nurse practitioner precept with someone outside of that specialty. A lot of times they don't, in my experience, they don't really understand why we as nurse practitioners need to precept with them. I did find a psychotherapist who happened to be on my Facebook page. She's a Facebook friend. And prior to me realizing that I would need her, we had had some conversations on Messenger because she owns her business. You guys know I'm a nurse entrepreneur, and we were kind of had a brief conversation about collaborating in the future. So I knew that she was a therapist, and when it came to crunch time, she is local to me, and she allowed me to precept with her. She did not demand any money, but I did pay her for her time anyway, and it worked out for me. I feel like if you are willing to pay, you will more likely find a preceptor faster. And I was not willing to sit out, and I actually did sit out. And I'll talk about that, but I wasn't really willing to sit out just because I didn't want to pay a preceptor. I wanted to be done. The program would have been 14 months. For me, it was 16 months, which was still pretty fast in the big picture. I ended up sitting out in January and February, and just picked right back up in March. So I feel like right around March is when, for me, I made a YouTube video about this. It's like totally overwhelmed with everything, and life happened. So I pretty much stopped providing services for business consulting. I pretty much stopped providing online courses, even though my website is still up and everything is still up. You can't register for a course. For me, my focus was life, everyday life, and getting through this program, because even though the hardest course, in my opinion, mentally the hardest course was psychopharmacology, the other courses seem like they're a little bit like you had to think less, but I feel like it's just a lot of content. It's not hard content. It's just so much that you need to study and so much that you need to learn. If it was like information overload, and I'm still working, like I'm going 6 days a week. 2 of those days that I'm going out of the 6 were for clinical, But when I wasn't at clinical, I was going to work. So and I'm still mom, I'm still wife, and it was a little bit it was a lot. It was just a lot. Not hard, just a lot, okay? Now the last 2 courses at Chamberlain were super easy. I feel like those were almost, and I hate to say this, it was almost just like busy work. You're taking continuously taking quizzes to prepare you for the boards, but it wasn't anything that was hard or too overwhelming. Now, my experience at Chamberlain, specifically for the master's program for FNP, no problem. I really didn't have any complaints. I know some people did, but to me, the content they presented, the lectures were awesome. You learn, and it was fine. For doctorate, which was during COVID, fine, no issues. From May till about December of last year for psych, fine. And then there was something that happened at that school, and anybody that attends Chamberlain who was in the psych program specifically, probably other programs too, but I was in psych, so that those are the students that I talked to. Everybody noticed, including me, there was a shift, and not in a good way. To me, the way that I see it is as if the school is taking in too many students and they can't handle the volume. So when you need answers to your questions, it was pretty hard. So the division or the group who handles clinicals is called ELC. You call to speak to someone from ELC, they don't answer the phone at all. When it comes to getting your preceptors approved, you have questions about either approval or just anything about precepting, which is probably one of the most important parts of the program. You literally don't talk to anybody on the phone. It's when you call and you choose that option, it automatically transfers you to academic advising, and they can't answer ELC questions. Literally, they can't. So that was extremely frustrating. There were times where the class started on Monday and I didn't get approved until the end of the week before, like that Friday or something like that, you know. And I pretty much had the same like 3 rotations. I had the same preceptor, and then my in-person PMHNP preceptor, I turned everything in, and I was just waiting and like, am I gonna be in class next week? And then finally, I got a notification, guys, I'm sorry. And then finally, I was approved. Now, just imagine how mentally stressful that is. You've done what you could do, and you don't know if you're gonna be starting. And also, imagine how embarrassing that is when you're having to communicate with the preceptor, because they're working and they don't know whether you're coming or not. And if they're limiting themselves with the number of students that they're allowing, you may be just out of luck. I think one of my AirPods just died, so this is probably gonna sound real crazy if you have on AirPods listening to this. You're only gonna hear it through your left ear. So anyway, so yeah, that was really frustrating. Another thing about Chamberlain that I feel like if I'm correct, I was the second cohort for psych. There was a class before us, and I think that when I started, I was in the second cohort, and I ended up graduating with the third cohort because I sat out January and February. But there are some kinks that need to be worked out. As far as the lectures, you're gonna learn about every disease. I shouldn't say disease, but every mental health problem, how to treat it, how to build your therapeutic relationships. You're gonna learn the legal aspects, the ethical aspects. You're gonna learn that, and you're gonna do well in your weekly content. But I have not met anybody that has passed every midterm and every final. If I had to guess a percentage, I would say 90% of the students fail the midterm and fail the final, and it's awful. I will say when you're taking the exam, it feels like, oh, I know this. You know, it doesn't feel hard. But then, you know, you get your scores and you can see the range of the lowest score, the highest score, and your score. You can see that in Canvas. Everybody's failing. So the way that Chamberlain does it is it's a point. Each class is 1,000 points. So if you do a quiz that's, you know, 100 points, 100%, then, you know, it just adds up. And your final and your midterm is usually a higher percentage, like 200 points or something like that. Most of the students were scoring in the 60s and the 70s, which is awful, because when they double that to reach the 200 points, you're only getting 120 out of 200, 140 out of 200, and that brings your grade down awfully, okay? It really brings your grade down. I recall them sending out an email regarding like getting the student suggestions, and the thing about it is you don't get to review. You don't get to review like what did you do wrong. So if I got a 60% on a or 70% or whatever on a exam, I need to know where I went wrong in my thinking. I need to know where I went wrong. Otherwise, I'm gonna get it wrong again in future exams and also in practice, because I don't know where I messed up at. And I did reply to them with those same sentiments. After that, I did notice that they would send what do you want to call it, like an announcement in the course, kind of to review the exam, but it still wasn't specific to each student. They are so worried about the test being leaked on the internet or compromising exams, but your students are failing. Majority of the students, and they're not going to tell you this. You speak to a former student, they will tell you most of the students fail every midterm and every final. You just have to get as many points as possible in the weekly content discussions, the projects, or whatever, you know, they have you. You have to get as many points as possible so you can end up, you know, above 85% when the course is over. And that was incredibly disappointing, because as you can imagine, that kind of, it beats you up, because you're thinking like, what the hell am I doing wrong? Like, I feel like I know this content or know it enough to pass, and you're failing. I don't get it. I don't know how a university so big, so popular, can have so many students failing every midterm and every final, and there not be any question about it. Like, who's looking? You know, who's looking? Because these students are still passing the boards. These students are still graduating. So what is it about the midterm and the finals that most of the students fail? And again, it's not like you only seeing your grades. We can see the range. Some of those grades were so low, y'all, so low. Some of those, anyway. So, but I take it as that's not a reflection of the student as much as it's a reflection of an awful test, and they need to review those tests, because either the answers were wrong and they had to give a couple points back, or they were just so poorly worded that it was just too confusing. And the one thing that I feel like the school would benefit, students would benefit from, is if the school provided some sort of test taking strategies in the beginning, because I learned test taking strategies through study groups and videos and things like that, but not everybody has access to that. And it's important that if you're paying $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 for a program, that you're not failing every single midterm and every single final. So I knew that when I was finished with the program that I would make a video and for YouTube, and my I do not recommend. With that being said, I did have clinicals with students from various universities, and almost all of them had some sort of complaint. Do I feel like I learned a lot at Chamberlain? Yes, but I feel like they need to fix their admin and they need to fix those tests. But every student from every university had some sort of complaint, and I feel like it's the newer schools, like schools that have been established a really long time. For example, I don't think I've ever heard or read on social media any Frontier student that complained. I didn't see that. I didn't see any, I'm sorry, any of the state university students. I don't think any of them complain. They do have a different type of like, we didn't have any papers to really write, but those students may have different type of work, like they may have papers to write when we at Chamberlain did not. So at this point in time, because I feel like the program is still working out kinks, I would consider another program if I knew what I knew now, and I would recommend other students consider, weigh the pros and cons of these programs before you just jump into one. Chamberlain's gonna let you in, baby. They're gonna let you in, but it is a little stressful because of what I've already told you. Now, I did have to go to, each one of these schools has a requirement. Usually if you do it online, you have to go to the school once or twice. So I did go to Chicago. I did graduate, and walked across the stage, but I'm gonna tell you something that is another thing that didn't anger me, but it frustrated me. You guys know that I have my DNP, and this is a post-grad program, so I'm not getting another master's degree. I'm getting this certification so I can expand my scope of practice. And I feel like common sense is when I walk across the stage, my regalia is that of a DNP, not of a master's. And so I asked them, like, hey, my last degree was doctorate. Am I wearing my doctorate regalia when I walk across the stage? And they gave me pushback, and they gave me half-ass answers. And I ended up wearing a master's degree regalia. And there was one girl who I felt like she was like, I'm wearing my doctorate. There was one girl who had on her doctorate degree regalia, and my husband was telling me, like, if I were you, I would not wear the MSN regalia because you have a higher degree. And I didn't want to stick out like a sore thumb. I met another nurse practitioner who has her doctorate, and she thought the same thing I did. Like, I don't want to stick out. I don't want to be told I can't walk. But so that was a little frustrating to me. And also when I graduated, and mind you, this is on YouTube. You can see this. Like, if you go to Chamberlain, you can literally see what I'm talking about. All of this. And they called all of us PMHNP students, like, they called the PMHNP program, about, I don't know, a handful of students walked across the stage. And then they called, like, these students have a post-grad and adult gero, whatever. But we were all like PMHNP students. So when we walked across the stage, it was literally under the wrong degree. I did not care. I walked across the stage, went to my seat, picked up my bag, and left. And I wasn't the only student, by the way. So I was like, my family didn't come with me. I was there by myself. So I just did it just to do it. It was all wrong. It was all messed up. But I finished and I'm done. Today, I am working on applying for the certification, the board exam. So that is done through ASCC. If you have a membership for the American Nurses Association, then you get like $100 discount. So when you go apply for your boards, it will tell you, hey, if you join the ANA, you'll get these benefits. So I did that last week, and I go to do it today. As a matter of fact, I need to check and see if it's all been updated. So I go to do it today, and it's trying to charge me the whole thing. So what I did learn is that if you are applying for your boards and you want that discount, I'm trying to look past the phone, and you want that discount, okay, so it's trying to give me a discount for being a member of AANP, but that's not what I want. I want a discount for being a ANA member. So I'm gonna wait a little longer. So I had to call my local chapter. They had not submitted my membership to ANA, and she told me right now to wait, just wait a little while, and then they'll update it. So I'll probably end up paying for my boards this afternoon. It's about $395, and you save like $100 if you are a member of ANA. Now I will say this, you guys know I am such a nurse entrepreneur at heart. I will rather work for myself than anybody else. Although I do somehow I end up keeping my foot in the door with a regular job. I don't know. My employer, who I've worked for full-time, part-time, whatever's needed for the past 4 years, has allowed me to take a month off. I'm gonna be honest, I thought I was gonna have to quit, which I was ready for, honestly, because I need to take my boards, and I'm trying to establish my psych business legally. And but right now I'm taking a month off from that job. When and if I go back, it will be part-time or PRN, if anything, because it's more important for me to get experience as a PMHNP. Now I will say this, if you're not seeing it now, you'll see it later. There's a lot of private practice, there's a lot of interest in private practice as a PMHNP. PMHNPs make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. But I can assure you, you can kill somebody with these medications. If you have the wrong, I feel like there's two things you can do if you're not competent. You can under-medicate and the patient is still having symptoms, or you can over-medicate, put them on way too much, you're not adjusting properly, and now you have this person in a bad situation that could honestly kill them. So, and that's why these programs, the focus is so much on the medication management. It's not a joke. We are prescribers. Yes, you can do therapy if you want to do therapy, but the most critical thing we can do as PMHNPs is prescribe and manage these people's symptoms. And if you are not ready to do that independently, it is no point to go to this program just to get a lot of money. With that being said, I am establishing my business. I am well versed as a FMP in depression, anxiety, and ADHD. So for me, I do not feel comfortable enough to accept anything other than that until I get experience. If I don't have experience in those with those conditions, I don't feel like I need to accept any patients. I don't feel like I need to accept any patients. I have to take these off, I think, for my private practice. So I have to work for someone else as a PMHNP to truly be able to care for patients with bipolar 1, bipolar 2, schizoaffective, schizophrenia. There's all kinds of diagnoses that start with schizo that are not the same. You know, all these personality disorders and all of that. There's no way that I think that I'm going to be able to manage independently immediately. And I definitely won't be offering any business consulting for psych until I have enough experience and I feel confident and competent in that. Now, will I go back to offering online courses? Yes, I will. I probably won't do it until October, when I'm past my boards and I've at least secured a part-time psych job. Then I can go back to focusing on business. Business is awesome. It's great to be an entrepreneur, but it is not the only thing. It is not the end all be all. And I had to, I had to, and you have to pull back if it's not gonna work. If it's not gonna work, I wasn't opening up these courses on time, and I just couldn't focus on creating more courses, even though I wanted to. I have courses that are nearly done on my learning platform that I didn't have the time and the passion to go and work on that while I was in that program. So eventually, yes, I will get back to it. But right now and just in 2023, that just wasn't really my focus. So I'll get back to it. I will get back to posting on YouTube. The thing about posting on YouTube is I feel like I'm in person, I'm a bit of an introvert and I'm kind of shy. So I feel like posting on YouTube is like, what do they want to hear? Like, who's gonna watch me for, like, right now I'm at 31 minutes and I'm like, who's gonna watch me to the end? Nobody's gonna watch me to the end. So if I feel like I kind of beat myself up about YouTube and posting. So I have a want to post, and then that voice in my head says, nah, anybody gonna want to hear that, and I don't post. So anyway, if you guys have any questions about the PMHNP program, I can tell you a lot about Chamberlain, and I can only tell you a little bit about other programs, and that's because I had clinicals with students from those programs. But I'm telling you, like, if you really want to be a psych NP, do what you have to do. Like, I met a student that was flying to clinical every week. He did not live or work in Florida. He was literally coming and getting a hotel every week so he can complete his clinical rotation in person, which is insane. So when people complain about paying, just think about, there's people willing to do way more than that so they can finish and be a good PMHNP. But anyway, I think I've kept you guys long enough. Hopefully you made it to the end. If not, you won't see this anyway. So I'll catch you guys on the next video, and let me know if you have any questions about psych or anything. No, I'm not doing any mentoring right now. And I've had these questions. No, I'm not offering any online courses right now, even though they're on the internet. They're still going to be, because the business is still established, but I'm not actively offering any business consulting or anything right now because I'm focusing on passing my boards. And I will catch you guys later, and I will tell you as much as I can tell you about the boards for those of you who are interested in becoming a psych NP. Talk to you later. Bye.